Our other top story, troubling new COVID-19 numbers from Houston Methodist.
Yeah, the hospital says it has seen an alarming spike in the number of COVID-19 cases across the Houston area, with a steep increase just over the weekend. In fact, cases are on the rise in all 50 states for the first time since January. And the CDC says unvaccinated Americans account for most of the increase.
Let's get straight out to Stephanie Whitfield live at Houston Methodist.
Stephanie, are most of the cases at Houston Methodist also the unvaccinated?
Yeah, about 90% of people hospitalized right now have not been vaccinated. And now Houston Methodist has also identified the first case of the Lambda variant, which is already the dominant strain in Peru.
Houston Methodist is seeing the sharpest increase in COVID-19 patients since last summer. Hospital CEO Dr. Mark Boom says 85% are infected with the Delta variant.
But really, over the last 7 days, we've seen things change dramatically.
But unlike surges last summer and winter, the rise right now is impacting a specific population, people who have not been vaccinated. Dr. Maria Rivera with Harris County Public Health says that's true with mild cases too.
We're seeing a lot of young people getting infected, so people that are less than 40. And we also know that those are the people that have the lowest rates of vaccination.
At Houston Methodist, 10% of people hospitalized with COVID-19 are vaccinated. But most breakthrough cases are patients with weakened immune systems from cancer or organ transplants. Dr. Boom says 90% of severe cases are people who didn't get the vaccine.
We're watching every day as 30 people are getting admitted, knowing that sadly over time, 2 or 3 of those individuals may pass away on average, which is all avoidable.
According to the Texas Medical Center's online dashboard, about 9% of ICU patients have COVID-19. And I know doctors are watching that number closely as numbers continue to rise. Reporting live in the Medical Center, Stephanie Whitfield, KHOU 11 News.